So you want to be a better healer in WoW Classic. As a healer, a lot of the time we feel like our game is just a game of whack-a-mole, and mainly it is, but there's a lot that goes into it that can take a healer from being good to being great. So today I'm going to talk to you about being a better healer in PvE content such as dungeons and raids. Healing is a balancing act, and how well you perform will greatly impact the rate that your group moves through the content. I'm going to go over some of the basics of healing in WoW Classic and the Burning Crusade Classic. I'm also going to challenge you to try and look at things maybe in ways that you're not used to. I'm going to talk about how you can set yourself up for success, and I'm also going to offer some of my own best practices for playing a healer. If you want to skip around in this video, feel free to use the timestamps in the description below. I love talking about healing, and it's been one of my favorite things to do in MMOs for the past 20 years, so I can definitely go on and on and on and on and on. The first thing I want to talk about is setting up your UI. Choosing unit frames that show you what you need to see is super important. Having that information available to you helps you make better decisions as to what spell you're going to cast, if you are going to cast on this person versus that one. All that information is going to help you make those decisions. Information like who has threat, who just popped their damage reducing cooldowns like shield wall. Does the person you're trying to heal have a debuff that makes your spells less effective? If so, you probably want to cast a shield instead of a big heal, or time your heal to land right as the debuff falls off. So let's look at some different raid frame options. The default raid frame in the game are an okay option for certain classes. You are able to do some customization with the default raid frames, such as decide how you want your raid members sorted, whether by party, class, or alphabetically. You can resize and reshape the general layout of these frames and move them around on your screen. These frames will show you some information, such as debuffs that you can dispel, but may omit certain other important information. I've been mainly using Grid 2 in WoW Classic for the ease of setup and the simple, clean look of the frames. I am able to add indicators for spell debuffs that I want to watch, and I can track if someone has a weakened soul, so I can't power word shield them when I'm playing my priest. Besides the fact that I could never get my cast to show on the incoming heals for the other healers I play with, it's worked out for what I need it to do. And I think that's just a communication problems between Grid 2 and heal comms or something like that. Grid 2 has a lot of customization, but it is also fairly user-friendly. So if you're just starting out and wanting to dabble in endgame add-ons, this might be a good add-on to start with. One of my favorite raid frames to use is Voodoo. I have a real love-hate relationship with Voodoo. It is a feature-rich raid frame that can be customized in far greater ways than Grid 2 or the default raid frames. But every time I need to start fresh and set up these frames, it takes me like 4 hours. I like Voodoo because you get a greater amount of information on these frames, and you're able to track multiple HOTS, which are heal over time spells, which is great for druids, great for priests. And in more modern versions of the add-ons, there is recommendations where you should cast your group heal, such as Circle of Healing. And in more modern versions of the add-on, there is a group healing support, and this will make recommendations of who you should target for your area of effect healing spells, such as Circle of Healing or Chain Heal. Whatever raid frames you decide to use, make sure that you are getting the following information. You want to know who has aggro. On my raid frames, I have a red dot in the corner of the player's health bar if they have threat from a mob. This lets me anticipate the damage they are about to take and throw on a power word shield, or maybe you'll want to bop the player or just start precasting a heal. You'll also want to see important debuffs. In many of the raid fights in WoW Classic and in TBC Classic, damage mechanics often coincide with a debuff on the player. This will let you know who to heal right away. And then this last thing I kind of consider optional, but it is definitely something that's nice to have depending on the class that you're playing. I like to track when people pop damage reducing buffs. So if a tank uses their shield wall, or if you have pain suppression on a player, I like seeing that buff. If the boss is enraged and my tank has shield wall up, I want to know when that shield wall is about to expire so that I can either start spamming my big heals or throw up a pain suppression or use some of my other abilities that will keep that tank alive. You will want to choose a raid frame that you like to look at. I prefer a clean, minimal aesthetic personally, but they are your frames, so you have to stare at them for hours. so find one that you like. When I'm setting up new frames, I like to test them out before a raid time by joining a battleground like Alterac Valley. I go in Alterac Valley because there are 40 people in the raid, which is the max raid size for most of the WoW Classic raids. So you can kind of get a feel for your layout and see if you like the way that everything functions. So next I want to talk about keybinds. I think it's really important to have a numbering and keybind convention. I use the same general keybinds for similar spells across all of my characters. I always have my main buttons that I hit be 1 through 4, Alt 1 through 4, and F1 through 4. I can quickly and accurately hit those buttons, so those are what I like to use for my main abilities that I want to quickly hit. I always use the same buttons for my interrupt abilities, which I like to bind to my mouse. But having this convention in place lets me acclimate to my classes quickly because I have this muscle memory of, I know this button is always an interrupt, I know this is always a speed buff, etc. When setting up your hotbars, you'll want to have in your mind different categories of your spells. And I like to think of them in 4 different categories. Number 1, we have mana conserving heals. So these are like your low rank, low cost, low healing spells. Number 2, you have high damage, high spending heals. Number 3, you have your O shirt buttons. And those are your instant big cast, maybe your lay on hands, things that are going to save people. And then 4th, we have utility spells, which are buffs, cleanses, etc. So this is usually how I have my keybind set up. I'll have 1 or 2 spells for the low amounts of damage. These are typically longer cast times, but not always. I mean, if you're playing a paladin, you're going to flash a light everything, but yeah. But those spells are the ones that are easy on your mana pool. These are the spells that you're casting when you're having an easy time. Maybe your tank is just taking a little bit of damage, or the damage that's going out is slow enough that you don't feel like everyone's going to die. For the high spend, high heal spells, those are for when everyone is taking more damage. It's for the high damage times. These are the higher rank spells that pack a bigger punch, and I'll usually macro in those bigger heals with like a healing power trinket. One example of using the bigger spells on my shaman is I'll usually cast a rank 1 chain heal, but if I see the melee in my raid get popped for half their health, I'll hit my button that pops my healing trinket and cast the max rank chain heals. Next we have the oh shit buttons, and this can be any spell that saves someone's life, such as a well-timed power word shield, a nature swiftness healing touch, a bop, all those type of spells. And the last set of spells that we need to be looking for the opportunity to use are our utility spells. These are party buffs, purges, spells, bops, freedoms, rebirths, etc. As you play this game, you'll begin to recognize the appropriate times to use all 4 different categories of spells, and it's just something that you're going to have to go through the motions and learn. One way to improve our healing gameplay is by incorporating macros. A macro is an in-game command that lets you use multiple abilities at the same time. If I am using an on-use trinket, such as the Zandalarian Hero Charm, I'll make a macro that will use the trinket and cast my heal at the same time, so I'm only hitting 1 button for both of those. You can access the macro menu with the /macro command in chat or /m, or you can hit escape and click on the macro button in the menu. You can save your macros just for your specific character, or you can save them by account so that you can access them on all your characters. I always begin my macros with the show tooltip for the spell that I'm using, and then you can use the command /use and include the name of the trinket or the item. For trinkets, you can also use the command /use 13 or 14, and that will use whatever trinket is equipped in your slot. To improve your reaction time, you can use mouse over macros or click to heal add-ons such as Healbot or Click. I've been using Click to heals for as long as I can remember. I just think it makes you a bit faster if you don't have to target someone before you press a button. I especially like using mouse over macros for my dispels and instant cast spells, such as shields on my priest, bop on the paladin, and also renews. When you are in an intense raid encounter, that split second could mean the difference between someone living or dying. Next, I want to touch on some add-ons that I like to use. I'm not going to go through everything that I use in game because it's frankly a lot. I'm going to focus on specific add-ons that I use just in healing. The first one is Weak Aura, and this is a super powerful build your own add-on interface notification system. It does a whole ton. I like using Weak Auras to let me know when I have a big ability off cooldown, such as my inner focus, or if my trinket is off cooldown, it kind of reminds me to use it by having a pop-up on the screen. Weak Auras can also trigger only on specific fights, so if you need a reminder to use your mana potion as soon as you're below a deficit of 2,000 mana, like you can have it tell you that. There's all sorts of ways that you can use Weak Auras to help you. The next add-on that is really important is Deadly Boss Mods. This gives you timers for a lot of the boss abilities and lets you know when there's going to be a lot of incoming damage. This lets you be more of a proactive heal instead of a reactive healer, and you're going to end up saving more lives this way. Another add-on that I like to have is a damage meter like Details or Recount. I mainly use this to review death logs. If we have a tank die and someone over comms says, "Oh my gosh, how did this tank die?" I can quickly look up at the death log and post that in chat. So if it's a question whether maybe the boss hit him for multiple crits in a row, or maybe he didn't get heals for several seconds, that information is at my fingertips in the middle of our raid. So the last tip I have for you guys is to use Warcraft logs to learn from others. I like to compare what some of the best healers in my class are doing on certain fights. If I'm having trouble with a specific thing, or I think I could do a lot better, I'll go and look through the logs to see what people are doing. What I like to do is go to the hamburger at the top of the page. You can go down to specific fights and I'll look at rankings, and then I'll select the class that I am interested in reviewing. Usually I'll try and look at fight duration and find a fight that is similar to my own guild's kill time. Because if my guild's taking 5 minutes on a fight, it doesn't really help me to look at a log that's 1.5 minutes long. Everyone's going to be doing things much different if it's a super short fight versus a longer fight. Once you've selected a fight, I like to go to healing, and if you mouse over the character that you're interested in looking at, it will show you the breakdown of spells that they cast. If you want to look at more information, you can also go to the events log, and that will give you a time-stamped log of every single spell that this person casts. If you would like to see maybe me go into a deep dive of how I use Warcraft logs in another video, I could do that. Let me know in the comments. So that's it for this video. I hope that these tips will help you a little bit in upping your healing game and becoming the best version of a healer that you can be. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please let me know in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. Thank you for watching. Bye!